House of Israel International Services are held weekly at 3601 Rose Lake Drive, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28217, 11 a.m. Saturday mornings and 7 p.m. Thursday evenings, Eastern Time. This live broadcast is made possible through financial contributions from brothers and sisters like you. Your financial support is greatly appreciated. Thank you. Motivating. Inspiring. Challenging. Encouraging. Deepening. Strengthening. And enhancing your faith. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to House of Israel International's live worship service.
Let me say this before I jump into it, though. Father has really been encouraging. He's been, there's been so much encouragement that he has been throwing at me, and I'm so glad for his encouragement. So no matter how I sound, no matter what I say, I'm coming from a place of encouragement. And in that encouragement, there's strength to be able to stand and to say the things that I'm going to say, knowing that anytime I stand like this, there's a tendency that I'm going to create some issues. I'm not trying to create issues. I'm trying to bring solutions. But oftentimes to deal with the solutions, it's going to create some issues. Amen. So, during this teaching, it's very important, as I stated, that you beware of and avoid at all costs distractions, and they've already started. So, another thing I will tell you is replay this teaching a couple of times to glean all you can to apply in your life. Those of you who received the description of the teaching, those of you who are signed up on our website, those of you who have downloaded the app, each week prior to these teachings, we send out, the description of what we're going to be discussing, and then encouraging you and asking you to take the time to read the verses, read the passages, and meditate on those things, and allow Father to cause those words that you're reading from His Word to help you and to prepare you for what He wants to do in you. I believe that the Almighty is constantly 24/7 working on our perfection. He's trying to perfect us. He wants you and I to walk in complete victory every single day of our lives. And yet our own decision makings, our own emotions, our own desires and feelings have a tendency to get in the way of what He desires for us. We walk by sight more than we walk by faith, regardless to what we might tell ourselves. And unless we are practicing on walking by faith, we're not going to do it. We can do it at times, but most of the time we find ourselves having to deal with the circumstances that we're confronted with. If you're a father, if you're a mother, you're constantly having to deal with issues. If you're a single person, you still have to deal with the issues if you're part of anybody's family. If you have boyfriends or girlfriends, you got to deal with issues. You got to deal with your issues. You got to deal with their issues, the things that are affecting them, the things that are affecting you. And sometimes if you're not careful, you'll find yourself focusing on the issues outside of you a lot more than you focus on the issues that are going on within you. The first thing we need to do, according to what Messiah says, is we have to seek first His kingdom and His righteousness. And once we seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, it's through the application of the righteousness that He reveals to us that He enables us to deal with all the other stuff that's going on around us. Every last one of us have economic challenges. And when I say economic challenges, I'm talking about you may have a lot more money today than you had last week or last year. But the concerns of tomorrow and next week and next month, the concerns of retirement, the concerns of your children growing up, an inheritance for your children, you're looking far ahead, and those things can cause some kind of of anxieties for us. And don't let our children start having issues. If our children's got issues that they're facing, whether they be emotional issues, whether they be medical issues, whether they be psychological issues, whether they be anxiety issues, whatever the issue they may be, and don't allow them to have to deal with any form of mental issue, where they become unstable. The more unstable our children are, the more tendency they have to keep us off balance. Because we'll put our energy on trying to stabilize them, and in the process of trying to stabilize them, we become unstable. And the average parent, especially moms and many dads, will sacrifice their life for the stability of the child. Will make sacrifice. Sometimes mothers will turn on fathers for the child. They forget the covenant as if they're married to the child. You see, you shouldn't marry your child. No matter how much you love them, no matter how much you care about them, you have one responsibility to your child, and that is to train them up in the commandments of Jehovah. Well, what if they don't want to do it? What if they don't want to live according to these commandments? What if they've been bitten by the serpent who desires for them to seek the things of the world, and they see the things of Jehovah as less important? That creates a problem. It creates a problem between you and them. And if you don't deal effectively with the problem between you and them, it creates a problem between you and him. The last thing you want is a problem with you and him. I'd rather have a problem with me and my children and my wife and my mom and my dad and my sister and my brother than to have a problem with him. Why? Because they will not help me figure out how to satisfy him, but he will help me figure out how to deal with them. And when it's all said and done, if they all leave, because some of y'all have been abandoned. Some of y'all have been left. Some of y'all have been left more than once. And it's that abandonment and those fears and those concerns that have shaped and molded you more than he is molding and shaping you. And we got to get back on that potter's wheel. He's the only one who has promised to never leave you or forsake you, and mean it. If you think about some of the folks who have left you, they have covenanted with you. There are people who've made covenant with you to be with you till death. And you ain't dead yet, and they ain't there. That's just the reality of the matter, folks. And I'm just, there's no point in doing what the word say if you're not going to do what the word said. And there are people in our lives that will have us compromising what the word say for their sake. You're not doing them any favors. You're not helping them. And you're certainly not helping you. In the beginning, Mr. and Mrs. Adam were given instructions to replenish, subdue, and exercise dominion over the earth. After the fall of man, the serpent in the garden, known as the dragon, the devil, and also known as the prince of this world, exercised dominion and power over fallen man. In Revelation 20, verse 1, it says, "And I saw an angel coming down out of heaven, having the key to the abyss, and holding in his hand a great chain." And in this next verse, we'll see several titles separate of Lucifer that Lucifer is called by or recognized by in Scripture. Verse 2, it says, he sees the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil or Satan and bound him for 1,000 years. And so all of these different names of the adversary, these different manifestations of how the adversary is operating in the earth, we as the people of Jehovah have to be aware of, because Yeshua even here show us how to overcome all of these. 3 times, according to John's gospel, Yeshua referred to the devil as a prince of this world. And this is what he said in John chapter 12, verse 31. Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. John 14:30. Hereafter I will not talk much with you, for the prince of this world cometh. And this should be bold and underlined. And he hath nothing in me. What does he have in you? I have to deal with what does he have in me. I have to deal with that. Because if I don't deal with what he has in me, then he can use me against me. And these are the things that he does. And others around us who see these things will begin to use them, exploit them to get their way in your life. John 16:11, of judgment, because the prince of this world is judged. You see, the prince of this world is judged. Therefore, when we look at this, there's 2 princes that we're going to be looking at in the earth. There's the prince of this world, Satan, the dragon, the devil, that old serpent. And then there's the Prince of Peace. The Prince of Peace. These are the 2 entities that we are going to have to deal with, and they're both now in this world invisible, and the visible manifestation is the Word of YeHoVaH. The Word. We must remember that the Word was the Word before it became flesh and dwelt among us. And when the Word which became flesh that dwelt among us ascended back to which it came, the Word which was in the world before the Word became flesh is still in the world. You can't believe in a Jesus or Yeshua or Yahshua or Yehoshua, no matter what you call him. You can't believe in him and reject the Word, because he and his Word is one. Jehovah's plan for the restoration of man was put into effect and revealed at the baptism of Yeshua. During the baptism of Yeshua, John the Baptist witnessed the Holy Spirit descending on Yeshua in fulfillment of what Jehovah had said to him. And thereby, Jehovah reveals the land of Elohim, who takes away the sins of the world. The same Holy Spirit then leads Yeshua into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Well, we're going to look at in this teaching how to overcome the devil. Yeshua gives us, or gives all Spirit-filled believers for ages to come, the method and example on how to personally exercise dominion and power over all the works of the devil in the kingdom believer's life and take their rightful place in the kingdom of heaven. This is probably the greatest danger of religion that tries to get the people of Jehovah to abandon the law. I'll say this right up front. What Yeshua does in overcoming the work of the devil is he quote from the law. He speak because he lived the law of Jehovah. And we're going to see in this particular passage, he didn't quote from the New Testament. And even when the devil tried to use Psalms against him, he didn't quote from the Psalms. Luke 4:1. And Yeshua, being full of the Holy Ghost, returned from Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. Now, if you remember when we read Matthew, and then as we dealt with the beginning stages of Luke, Yeshua came from Nazareth. He came from the Galilee. He came to be baptized of John. Once he was baptized of John, it says he returned from the Jordan. Now, looking at other passages in various Gospels, he returned from the Jordan. The question is where did he return to? Well, the language indicates he returned to where he had come from. Matthew deals with it in a sense that, it's kind of disconnected. And this is one of the reasons why when we're looking at the gospel and looking at the whole layout of the gospel, overlaying different passages with different passages, we get a broader picture of what's going on. Being 40 days tempted of the devil, and in those days he did eat nothing, and when they were ended, he was hungry. And the devil said unto him, if you be the Son of God, command this stone that it be made bread. And notice Yeshua's response. He answered him, saying, it is written that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word of God. Now, a New Testament believer will say, well, he's quoting from the New Testament. That's what they would say. That, this is Yeshua quoting from the New Testament. But we know better. He wasn't quoting from the New Testament because the New Testament hadn't been written yet. He's quoting from what was written. And this is why it's important for us to understand timeline. Even though we looked at when Luke was written and when this happened is two totally different times. See, this happened long before Luke investigated and wrote about it. So Luke is writing about something that had happened before he wrote. He is revealing to us something that happened before Luke was written. So he's not quoting from Luke. He's quoting from what is written. And where is it written? Deuteronomy 8:2. And thou shalt remember. And what I want to do here, because we see a verse, we see a statement, but I want to put the statement back into the context from whence Yeshua pulled it out from when he quoted. Because Luke gives us a portion of what was in that particular context. 8:2. And thou shalt remember all the way which Jehovah your Elohim led thee these 40 years in the wilderness to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. So the whole purpose of what the Almighty did to the children of Israel is to expose themselves to themselves. He wanted to show them what was in them. And when we look through the Torah and we look through this whole 40-year wilderness experience, the whole 40-year wilderness experience was Jehovah trying to show his people what was in them. And what was in them is what was in them before they came into the knowledge and began to sojourn with them. What was in them while they walked with him. What was in them was what was causing them to make decisions in how they were going to respond to what he was saying. And we know that in many cases, the decisions that they made while they were in the wilderness is what kept them in the wilderness. In fact, some of the decisions that they made while they were in the wilderness upset him so bad that he swore in his wrath that they would not enter into his rest. Now, that's a terrible thing. That is like, I'm trying to show you what's in you because what's in you is hindering your walk with me, and I can't take you into what I promised you because what's in you is preventing me from doing it. I'm not your problem. You are. Now, you can get angry at me for pointing it out, and that's what the people did. They got angry at Moses. They got angry at Aaron. They got angry at Jehovah, and they turned on them. People will turn on you when you hold them to the truth. That's what they'll do. If they don't want to live the truth, why are they going to listen to you and you're telling them the truth? What they'll do is they'll find flaws and issues and areas in you and your character to undermine what you are saying, to illegitimize what you have spoken based on who you are and the character and the stuff they remember about you. Oh, you think you're perfect. No. Let's not bring it to me. Listen to what I'm saying. Well, no. The vessel. I'm looking at the vessel that's saying what is being said to me. And when I look at the vessel and find flaws in the vessel, I could delegitimize the word. Well, the word is still true, whether you delegitimize the vessel or not. Why even go through the process of delegitimizing the vessel? Because you don't want to hear the word. Now, don't you do that to yourself. I did this to show you what was in your heart. Do you know what's in your heart? Do you? When you examine yourself, because I have to look at all of my motives for what I do. I have to look at what's motivating me to do what I do. And I have to be honest with myself. And if I see what's motivating me is coming out of some bad place in me, then I need to confront that. Because if I allow bad places to stay there, it's going to cause me to operate in a motivation that may not be of him, even though I have approved that message. And that's in everything. In everything. And I'll tell you that we can be some cunning and self-deceiving people. That's what I identified about myself. There are things that I do that I have done, and even though I explain them to people, they don't believe it. They don't believe the motivation that I'm explaining them to why I'm doing what I'm doing. I've even been called a liar. And it's like, how do you defend someone calling you a liar when you've been honest in sharing with them what is motivating you to do what you're doing? What are they saying? No matter what you say, because you've already said it, I'm not going to believe it. And unless you change the story, you're a liar. How do you win somebody from that perspective? You can't. So you have to be true to you regardless of what they think. Because they'll try to hold you to their standard and what they think. And if you're trying to conform to them, you're conforming to the wrong person. Well, I love him. Well, I love her. Well, I love them. Love him more. Love him more. And I'll just let this out the bag because you already know it. If you're going to walk with him, you're going to make enemies with people that you walk around. When Yeshua says a man's enemies, his foes, will be those of his own household, take note. Because he's not a liar. Unless a husband and a wife is willing to die to self and yield to the commands, the instructions of the Almighty, they're going to have problems. And even if they do, they still going to have problems. But they got the problem solver. They got the one who will help them find the solution, but they got to die to themselves to even get to that place. And in the process, the Almighty has established order. See, when I say, and I've said this before, and I don't take it back, that the original intent for Father, when he created the man and the woman, is for them to be equal. But you know what? Most people can't handle equality. They cry about it, they want it, they demand it, they march, they petition, but they can't handle equality because with equality comes humility. And humility says, okay, I'm not going to fight about this. Okay, I'm not going to argue about this. Here's my position. That's where I stand. You deal with that. And where's that position coming from? Verse 3, and he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger. See, some of the trouble, some of the suffering, some of the things that we're going through in life is his doing. Why? Because he's trying to teach us some humility. It's tough for a human being to humble themselves. You might say, well, that's not true. When's the last time you really tried it and stuck with it? And in the process, examine your thoughts. Examine your feelings. Examine what's going on in your head. Examine the conversations you're having with yourself in your humility. And you'll see your motivations. And there are things about us that we see that we don't say, because to say it would be to expose ourselves and to be taken advantage of as we foresee it. To walk in true humility means that you are exposed to the point to where you will be vulnerable. And yes, people can take advantage of that vulnerability. And because we don't want to be taken advantage of, it's hard for us to allow ourselves to be in that place. But you can't walk in his humility without going into that place. It's like you become naked, exposed. And then when people try to take advantage of it, there's a tendency to try to cover up your nakedness and try to defend your vulnerability and take matters back into your own hands. And all of this is the Almighty's doing to get you to a place to where he says, you say you trust me? Okay. You say you trust me? Okay. You say you really trust me? Okay. Prove it. But they might take advantage of it. Do you trust me? But they may read it the wrong way. Do you trust me? But they might mistreat. Do you trust me? And when it really comes down to it, we'll see that there are certain areas in our lives that we do trust him, and then there are other areas that we don't. And to be brutally honest can be damaging to people who are looking for another person in you. See, there's the you that people want to see, and there's the him in you that they ain't interested in. Ooh-wee. When we die to self, we have to die to self. And you know the self that we have to die to is the self people are familiar with. So when you die to that self that people are familiar with, they don't know you no more. Now they're going to try to reshape you. Now here's the thing. The person that you were, they didn't like no way. There are things about them that they loved, things about you that they liked, but there are things about you they had already started working on trying to change. Think about the ones you've been trying to change. The person that you like, and there are things about them that you don't like, and you tell them, and then you try to manipulate them, and then you try to control it, and they still be who they are. And we say we're in love because it's not a good thing to say that the person that you love you can't stand. But there are people that we love and we can't stand them. We don't like them. There are certain conversations we don't like having with them. They get on our nerves, but yet we love them. Now, we can probably tell them if we ain't scared of them. But most of us are scared. We're scared to tell the person about themselves and don't want to hear when they tell us about us. I'm going to tell you, it's a beautiful relationship when a husband and a wife can tell each other about themselves and love each other through it. You're not going to become one overnight. You're not going to become one. You might not be, it might take you a lifetime. Why? Because you are constantly changing. Why? Because he's constantly growing you. With everything that he reveals to you about you, it forces you to change, and every time you change, you become unfamiliar with the one who's familiar with you. I told you got to listen to this a few times because this stuff, man. And he humbled you and suffered you to hunger and fed you with manna which you knew not, neither did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man does not live by bread only, but by every word that proceed out of the mouth of Jehovah doth man live. And the Torah came from where? From his mouth. The law came from where? From his mouth. Moses wrote, but Jehovah spoke. Whatever Moses wrote, Jehovah spoke. So if Jehovah spoke, what did he speak through? Through his nose? His ears? He spoke through his mouth. And it's the words that come forth from his mouth doth man live. And when Yeshua is confronted with the devil, what is he quoting? He's quoting from what came from Jehovah's mouth to the devil. So what the devil is doing is he's working on religion. He's working on religious people saying, abandon that Torah. Abandon that Torah. That's the law. That's the law. That's a curse. But the moment you abandon the law, you got no more fight. You got nothing to throw at him because that's under the law. Well, I can tell you this. Think about it. Who's the lawless one? He is. Who gave the law? He did. If you abandon the law, what do you become? Lawless. Who becomes your daddy? The lawless one. That's a simple equation. And it's not no funny math. It's simple. And yet, the enemy has convinced the world, especially the church world, that that law is not for you. Yeah. Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years. So Yeshua's in the wilderness for 40 days, quoting the word of YeHoVaH that had been spoken to the people of YeHoVaH, who by the time they got through that 40 years of wilderness to go into the promised land, the leader who had brought them during those 40 years was instructed by YeHoVaH. In one sense, when YeHoVaH commissioned Moses, he told Moses that you're going to bring my people into this land. He says, you're going to go and tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And the promises of Abraham that I promised Abraham, you're going to go and get the people so that the promise of Abraham that was promised him would be fulfilled. Well, Moses finished, he completed a great part of his mission because he did bring the people out, but he wasn't able to carry them in. He brought them to the mountain, and that was a promise to the Almighty. He says, you'll worship me on this mountain. This is how you're going to know that what I'm saying to you is going to be fulfilled, because you're going to worship me on this mountain. And Moses did. Once he brought the people out, he was called up into the mountain, and what did he do up there? He worshiped and received the word to give to the people so that when they cross over into the land, this would be the constitution for the people. And the devil now take him up into a high mountain, showed unto him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said unto him, all this power will I give you. All this power will I give you. Now remember, we've already looked at what Yeshua said, that the devil was the prince of this world. How did he become the prince of this world? Because the first man and woman abdicated their responsibility. They chose to listen to the serpent instead of listening to the one who made the serpent. And you know, one of the advantages, well, you and I have a lot more advantages than the man and the woman in the garden. You see, the man and the woman in the garden didn't have a history of what the Almighty was able and capable of doing. He put them in a place that already existed. They had no adversary that they were aware of, and all they had to do was follow an instruction. You and I, we got Bibles in various versions. We got the history of man's dealings and Jehovah's dealings with YeHoVaH. We got the pros and the cons. We got the examples of those who obeyed and those who disobeyed. We see the consequences and the blessings. We see all of it, the failures and the successes. So we've got a whole plethora of history they didn't have. So when the enemy comes and begins to question them, did God really say you're going to die? We've got the examples of those who rebelled and who died. They had no examples. All they had was a word that the enemy now could kind of talk them out of and second guess. And in that moment, went against the Almighty, and the world that they had been given to subdue, they are now being subdued in and by the serpent. At that moment, he became the prince. Little prince. See, there's a big prince coming. But this big prince was before the little prince. And that's our prince, which we're going to see he takes on different characteristics. So he says, all this power I will give you. It was his to give. and the glory of them, the kingdoms. Because see, in the end, what's going to happen, if you read the end of the book, you're going to see that the kings and the nations of this world is all going to give their power to the devil. They're already doing it. This is how laws are being made today. See, our nation, the nation of the United States of America, has crossed so many lines and allowed things to occur that have become the laws of men that is a slap in the face of the Creator. And it don't matter what nation it is, because every nation in the earth is going to give its power. And so he says, I'll give it all to you. I will give it to you, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will give it. If thou therefore would worship me, all shall be thine. In another version, if you would bow before me. Well, to bow is to worship. And I'm not talking about one of these bows. I'm talking about face to the ground bow. This is what he's saying. Yeshua answered and said unto him, Get thee behind me, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship Jehovah Elohim, and him only shall you serve. And where did he get that from? And you're going to notice all these quotes come from Deuteronomy. In Deuteronomy 6:13, thou shalt fear Jehovah your Elohim and serve him, and you shall swear by his name. You shall not go after other gods of the people which are round about you. For the Lord your Elohim is a jealous fellow among you, lest the anger of Jehovah your Elohim be kindled against you and destroy you from off the face of the earth. So Yeshua is pulling these statements out of these contextual passages, but within the context, because if you notice, he says, thou shalt worship Jehovah your Elohim, and him only shall you serve. But when you look at the context from what he's pulling it out of, see, he's recognizing, and he's already recognized, that Satan has the ability to give him the things that Satan says he can give him. But see, here's what he also knows. It don't belong to Satan. So for him to yield to Satan would be the same as the first man. Well, he came to restore what the first man had lost. And you can't do it by yielding to the same entity that caused the first man to lose his dominion. Verse 9, and he brought him to Jerusalem and set him on a pinnacle of the temple and said unto him, If you be the Son of God, cast yourself down from here. And then he quotes from the Psalms. For it is written, He shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee. And in their hands, they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against the stone. Now, I'm just going to read these verses, and you'll see the context again where he pulls it from. This is the devil taking verses. It's kind of like a lot of the sermons that we've been accustomed to in church, where they cut and paste verses and weave them together to make a doctrine. Psalms 91:9, because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. So what is this based upon? That, you've made Jehovah your refuge. Jehovah is the Most High is your habitation. See, this is what the psalmist is saying. For he shall give his angels charge over thee. Why? Because you have made him your refuge and your habitation. No evil shall befall you. See, whenever you're confronted with the enemy, if you've made Jehovah your habitation, if he's your refuge, then all you have to do is stand on what he says. if you stand on what he says, sometimes standing on what he says seems like the wrong thing to do. You say, well, how is that, brother? There have been times when Father has told me things that I didn't agree with him on. I just didn't. I'm looking at it from my perspective, but his ways and my ways are not the same. See, he sees tomorrow, he sees the next day, he sees next week, he sees next month, he sees next year. He knows my end from my beginning. He knows that in my way of thinking is what got me to this place to begin with. My wisdom took me through all the trouble I went through. It was my wisdom, my way of thinking, my way of doing that allowed me to connect to this person, that allowed me to connect to that person. Decisions I made that I look back and regret. Even though at times I heard him in the background saying, no, don't do that. No, don't go with that person. No, run. And I didn't run, and I did do that, and I went with them. And now I'm in trouble. And it's like, where you at? When I needed you, you weren't there. Well, I was there when you needed me. You just rejected me when I was calling out to you. Now that you're in trouble, you want my help. Well, I will help you, but there are some things that you need to learn in this. Because if you don't learn the things you need to learn in this, if I bail you out too soon, if I come to your aid too soon, if I remove these obstacles and these hurdles too soon, you're not going to learn the lesson and you're going to find yourself right back there again. So there's some things you got to learn. See, he says, I suffered you to hunger. I allowed you to go through hunger. Because see, it's something about hunger that causes you to reconsider some things. And then you'll see how low you'll go when you're hungry. Because see, hungry people, their standards, you won't eat broccoli? You don't like broccoli? Okay. You get hungry and all you see is a broccoli patch all around you. It's like, what you gonna do? Do you hate broccoli that much to where you'll just starve yourself in the midst of all this food? See, there's some things that the Almighty allow us to go through to teach us some lessons because he knows what's best for us. But I have to admit, there are things where I thought more often than not that I knew better. And you know how I know that? Because of the decisions I made that went against his word. I'm not ignorant of the fact that I violated his word when I did the things that I did. I'm thankful, I'm grateful, I'm extremely grateful that the calamity and damage that it could have done wasn't as great as it could have been. And in the midst of that, I still can be thankful. Because I recognize that when I didn't think he was with me, he was right there all along. I was just too busy being into me. He says, because he has made Jehovah his refuge, no evil will befall thee, no plague shall come near thee. He will give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. But then notice what he just left out. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and the adder, the young lion and the dragon. Shalt thou. Now he just stopped at verse 12. You know what I'm saying? It's like verse 12 would not have benefited him at that moment. He didn't want to empower Yeshua with the word. He just wanted to use the word against him. Luke 4:12. And Yeshua answering said unto him, it is said. Now, it is said is similar to it is written, except in the Greek they give it another word definition, but it is said, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy Elohim. Now, where was that said at? Where it was written. You shall not tempt Jehovah your Elohim as you tempted him in Messiah. So what is he saying? Jehovah told him, said, y'all done tempt me once. Don't tempt me like you did. And Yeshua is remembering, he says, you know what? Because see, he got history. He got the word. Unlike Mr. and Mrs. Adam, he know that there have been people who've been tempted before to disobey the Almighty. These things are written for what? For our example. We've got example after example after example throughout the written word. If we study it, remember it, recite it, live it. And I can tell you, to do that is going to go against everything within your natural self. Because your natural self is conditioned to this natural world. And it's if you're not mature enough to be listening to national TV, watching national TV, looking at idols in humans, having people that you admire. See, for me, when I begin to look out in the world, there are people who at times and seasons in my life have said something or done something that left an impact. They're not to become my God. They're not to become my Elohim. They're not to be the go-to every time I need counsel. Because people of God, people who love God can give you ungodly counsel. They're going to counsel you because they have a connection to you. They're emotionally connected to you. They are trying to look out for you. They think that because of all the conversations y'all have had together and the journeys you all have been on together, that they know what's best for you. That's what they think. Let's see. Anyone who loves you is going to get out of the way and tell you, here's what I think, but you need to seek the Most High. You need to seek the counsel of Jehovah. Don't take what I'm saying as the only counsel, because I'm not the counselor. You have a counselor. You have one, and if what he says overrule what I say, then you better follow his ruling. I love you. I care about you. I want what's best for you, but I don't know what's best for you. Why? Because I can only see the now, based on the past, based on our history. I don't see tomorrow. I can't see the next day. And oftentimes, because of those connections, especially parents want to be forever connected to their children. When it comes to children, parents can get irrational, flat out stupid. Ooh, I know that sounded hard. It came out hard, but you know I'm telling you the truth. I've seen parents do stupid things because of their children. I've seen parents lie. I've seen parents be deceived. I've seen parents go against the word of YeHoVaH for their children. I've done it. I've been tempted to do it. And I have to restrain myself from doing it. Because every time I do it, I embolden them to become more rebellious against God. Every time. And if I support that rebellion, the Almighty is going to have an issue with me. In fact, he already got some issues with me. And he's saying, listen, you've supported the rebellion long enough. Now, you need to get off that boat. You need to get off that train. You need to deal with some issues that is going to cause you some emotional investments and in some cases, some emotional collateral, but don't worry about it. I'm backing you up, but I can't back you up if you don't stand on what I'm telling you. And the tendency is it's going to create some issues. You know, I think some of our biggest challenges is because we can see people, but we can't see him. See, I don't see if Father frowns at me, but I can see when somebody frowns. If I say something to one of my children, I see their reaction. If I say something to my wife or to one of you, I see your reaction. My eyes see what you are reflecting in your response to what I'm saying, and that sends a message back to me. I don't want you to look like that. I don't want you to feel like that. I want to satisfy you. I want to please you. I want to make you happy. And what you are showing me based on what I'm saying doesn't make you happy, so the tendency is to reconsider. And this is why children bank on please, 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 pretty please, pretty please, pretty please, 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 no matter how many times you say no, 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 no. It's like, when they going to get the no message? They ain't planning on getting it. Because they know that if they do this long enough, because they learned that from a baby. If I just, check them out sometime. They got you figured out. If that gets them what they want, why should they abandon it? And they grow up doing the same thing. They just got a different way. They don't cry like a baby. They just whine like one. Pout. Slam doors. And you got to deal with all that. You got to look at it. You got to feel it. Then they start talking to you. Now, they mad at you, but they get on the phone, and in the midst of their anger toward you, they're laughing and joking with their friends. Like, wait a minute, hold on. What happened to that anger? Oh, that's at you. That ain't got nothing to do with these. So are you saying you done turned the anger off you had toward me while you're dealing with your friend? And then once you finished dealing with your friends, which you're happy and jubilant and just excited to talk to, then you turn the anger thing back on. No different than that child. Ah! And you know what? Now, this is going to seem cruel. It's going to seem mean because it seems like that pressure. This is some pressure. If that child fall out in the grocery store and start acting crazy, just walk away. Leave them. The moment you get out of sight, they're going to jump up, find you, and fall out again. You think I'm lying? Try it. You let all the secrets out, bruh. So you shall not tempt him. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Jehovah your Elohim, and his testimonies, and his statutes, which he hath commanded thee. And thou shalt do that which is right and good in the sight of Jehovah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the good land which Jehovah sware unto your fathers. You see, Yeshua understood the power of Jehovah's commandments in defeating the devil. And notice again, he did not quote a New Testament verse or passage, but he quoted from the law. The law is the word of YeHoVaH. It's the word of YeHoVaH. It's not the words of Moses. It's the word of YeHoVaH. The devil and sin reigned. Why? Because sin entered through disobedience. The serpent that enticed the woman and got the man to disobey YeHoVaH took both of them captive. Sin entered the world at that moment, and it reigned until the law. This is what Paul tells us. Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin. And so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. For until the law, until when? Until the law, until when? Until the law, sin was in the world. But sin is not imputed where there is no law. Why? The law says sin, that's sin there, that's sin there, that's sin. Paul says, I wouldn't have known that was sin or that was sin or that was sin, except the law said that's sin, that's sin, that's sin. Now the law has exposed sin for what it is. Nevertheless, death reigned from Adam to Moses. So wait a minute. Until the law, death reigned. For how long? From Adam to Moses. Even over them that had not sinned after the similitude of Adam's transgressions. Who is the figure of him that was to come? Who is the figure of him that was to come? Who is that? Yeshua, the second man. This is what Paul calls him in 1 Corinthians. The first man, Adam. The second man, Yeshua. And he carries this theme through Romans, through Galatians, through Corinthians. So what the word of YeHoVaH, the law, did was identified and labeled sin as a work and tool of the devil. And by coming in agreement with the law, one could defeat the devil at every turn. The law, the word of YeHoVaH, was preached to Israel, but they did not mix it with faith. This is why they were in the wilderness all that time. Hebrews 4:1. Let us therefore fear lest the promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them. But the word preached, now wait a minute. Unto us the gospel was preached as well as unto them. Unto whom? Unto the children of Israel. What was the gospel preached to them? The word of YeHoVaH. That was the gospel preached to them, the word of YeHoVaH. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. And it won't profit us. See, for you to know that the Sabbath is holy, to not remember it and keep it holy, it's not going to profit you the way it's supposed to profit you. For you to know the holy days, the feasts, and then you not honor them, it's not going to profit you the way it's supposed to profit you. There are things that when we walk in obedience to the Almighty concerning his law, you know what he does? He starts whispering things in our ear. Think about this, brothers and sisters, from you who was created in his image and likeness. You don't trust everybody. In fact, you may have a select people that you trust. And that's not a whole lot of folks. There are some people that you feel like you can tell anything to, but that's not everybody you know. How did they get that place in your life? You two became tight. They showed themselves. They proved themselves. And now you trust them to tell them things you wouldn't tell anybody else. Guess what? Jehovah desires that trust with you and I. And when we become tight like that, he starts saying things to you. He starts revealing things to you, things that he won't reveal to anybody else. Why? Because to whom much is given, much is required. And those who are faithful over the little, he will give them more. There are certain things that Father does not reveal to certain people who don't walk in obedience to his word in certain areas. Because what is he saying? You have shown me that I can't trust you. I done told you what's holy, but you disregard it, or you treat it holy when it's convenient. When it's not convenient, then it's not holy like it is on other days. Because see, sometimes you may put your will and what you need to do, especially when it comes down to the children I gave you. When it comes down to the wife I gave you, the husband I gave you. Sometimes they want to do stuff on his holy day. Sometimes they don't want you to be as holy on this holy day as you were on the other holy days. Now, here's what we'll do. We'll compromise. This Sabbath, you can be holy. But this Sabbath, we get to do what we need to do. So now you got a holy Sabbath and a Sabbath that, you just kind of compromised on. This feast, that feast. See, it took us a while to figure out, but every time we start getting close to the Sabbath, the devil shows up. When we start getting close to the feast, the devil shows up. People who got plans, and because we can't plan it out in advance, there's folks who they booked a cruise for us. You know what? We need to get this locked in. We need to get it locked in. And now once you get it locked in, you got to, pay for it or whatever the case may be. And there are things people are locking in months and sometimes years in advance. And then it just so happens when that time comes, it's a holy day. It's his holy day because we didn't plan on it. We didn't plan on it. We're on vacation. We're on a cruise. We're seeing the world. We're doing the things that you know what? You can keep the Sabbath holy on vacation. You sure can. Now, it means that you might have to forego that ride on the boat. The Scooby-Doo, what that ski-doo or whatever it is, you may have to, I know you paid for it, but, now you compromise because, hey, we're going to relax on the Sabbath day. And Father says, okay, I see what you're doing. That's your plan. No problem. Just understand something. you're showing me that during this time, there may be some things that I want to reveal to you. There's some things that I want to share with you. But you put me on hold, and you know that there's been situations to where you're having a conversation with somebody, and you may have finally built up enough nerve to say that thing you haven't been able to say all this time. And you say to somebody, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. And they say, not now. Not now. I'll be available in a few hours. At that moment, whatever you just built yourself up to share goes back down. Okay. What was that you wanted to talk to me about? Oh, never mind. Never mind. See, you don't know what you missed. And this is the way it is with the Almighty. We don't know what he missed. We don't know what he is not revealing to us because we weren't available when he wanted to reveal it to us. Ooh-wee. I'm almost done. Quoting the law without faith in it is useless. Quoting the law without faith in it is useless. The law by itself, without faith, is useless. See, the problems with the people of Yeshua's day is that they didn't put their faith in him, but they had the law, their version of it, and their traditions with it. The law, as the word of YeHoVaH, must be lived. We must be doers of the word. Luke 4:13. And when the devil had ended all the temptation, he departed from him for what? A season. This season, a due measure, a measure of time, a larger or smaller portion of time, a fixed and definite time. Usage, time, 64 times, season, and so on. From time to time, the devil showed up in Yeshua's life. And how did he show up? Through people. This is the only time we see that Yeshua is dealing with the devil as the devil. Throughout his ministry, he's dealing with the devil through people. Even his own disciple. No, Lord, be it far from me. Get behind me, Satan. I know who your daddy is. Abraham is not your father. Your daddy is the devil. People came at him, his parents, his mom, his brothers, his sisters, the religious leaders from time to time, his own disciples, they dragged their feet. He got upset at them. People. The enemy left him for a season, but he showed up from time to time, manifesting in people. This is why I know the scripture says we struggle not against flesh and blood. You have to learn how to not respond to some stuff. You have to learn how to let certain things go. You have to learn how to not let things in your spirit. Because see, if you live by that adage, sticks and stones, you will allow the words to break your bone. They will break you. Words in your spirit will damage you. That's why psychology, psychologists, psychiatry is big business today. Social workers, mental hospitals, mental institutions, social institutions, social networks, people trying to get their identity, get likes, loves, shares, social network. People are looking for affirmation from strangers, people they don't even know, never met. A like will go a long way. Don't mess around and put a heart in there. It'll go a long, long way because we're looking for affirmation externally instead of from him in us. Verse 14, and Yeshua returned in the power of the Spirit into Galilee, and there went out a fame of him throughout all the region round about. So now everything he's operating, his ministry has started. And I just want to give you a few simple things. I want to start out with, we looked at Lucifer, Satan, the dragon, the devil, the adversary being the prince of the power or the prince of this world. But it was prophesied that Yeshua was and is the Prince of Peace. Isaiah 9:6, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty Elohim, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And when you think about government, it's hard for us to think about the government of the kingdom because we're knowledgeable of the governments of this world. And we don't see that government. Well, the kingdom of heaven has a government. The kingdom of heaven has an order. The kingdom of heaven has a king. The kingdom of heaven has laws and rules by which the occupants of the kingdom are to conduct themselves. And the kingdom of heaven has a prosecutor. The kingdom of heaven have a prison. It was not designed for the people of the kingdom. But those who reject the king and his kingdom, that's where they will reside. They'll be locked away from the rest of society. And that's an unfortunate thing, but that was not designed for any of us. It's for Satan and those who yield themselves to him. You see, Paul wrote to us, he says, whoever you yield your members to, his servant, his slave, you become. If you yield your members to unrighteousness, you become a slave of unrighteousness. And let me throw this out here again, and every chance I get. Young men, keep your virginity. You lose it, you can't get it back. Young women, keep your virginity. You lose it, you can't get it back. Don't let somebody talk you out of something so holy, something so sacred. Don't let somebody do that. And the world around us wants so desperately to be accepted, to be loved, to be embraced, to be wanted, to be desired. But once you give yourself to somebody, their servant you become. Once you yield yourself to that, you become a slave. And there's nothing you can do about it because you are forever changed. Your way of seeing things, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your judgment, and everything else. And you won't know it until after you've done it. You won't see it. See, there are certain things you will not see until after. That's the same thing with our walk with the Almighty. There's certain things he won't reveal to us until we've demonstrated our faithfulness to him. After the resurrection, Yeshua was referenced as the prince. And this word prince is a different word than the prince of the prince of this world. This is a chief leader, prince, the Messiah, one that takes the lead in anything and thus affords an example, a predecessor in a matter, pioneer, author. And so we see this word in the New Testament in three different terms: prince, captain, and author. In Acts 3:13, the God of Abraham and of Isaac and of Jacob, the God of our fathers, hath glorified his son Yeshua, whom you delivered up and denied him in the presence of Pilate when he was determined to let him go. But you denied the Holy One and the just, and desired a murderer to be granted unto you, and killed the Prince of Life, whom God had raised from the dead. Acts 5:30. The Elohim of our fathers raised up Yeshua, whom you slew and hanged on a tree. Him that Elohim exalted with his right hand to be a prince and a savior, for to give repentance to Israel and forgiveness of sin. And we are his witnesses of these things, and so is also the Holy Spirit, the Holy Ghost, whom Elohim hath given to them that obey him. Hebrews 2:9. But we see Yeshua, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of Elohim, should taste death for every man. For it became him for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, in bringing many sons unto glory, to make the captain, the commander of their salvation perfect. How? Through sufferings. See, much of the sufferings you are going to endure in life, if you walk this walk, is going to be self-denial. It's not going to be what people do and say. It's going to be you going against your own nature, because your human nature is a fallen nature. And your human nature is connected to the human natures around you. You got to die to that person in order to become the son, the daughter. Hebrews 12:1, wherefore seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, we got to, Hebrew 12 comes after Hebrew 11. And if you read Hebrews 11, where it talks about the generals of the faith, or, all of notice that there's not one. Now, Hebrews is in the New Testament. There's not one New Testament character in the list. Not one. Not one. They're all Old Testament characters who were under the law, who live by faith. It says, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Yeshua, the author. Now that's that word prince. The author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of Elohim. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witness, I read that. But I wanted to focus a little bit on this particular verse. Yeshua is the author and finisher of our faith. We looked at author, but this finisher, because this is where I want to get. One who has in his own person raised faith to its perfection, and so set before us the highest example of faith. And so set before us the highest example of faith. There is no greater or higher example of faith than that demonstrated by our Savior and King. No example. No Paul, Peter, James, John. Maimonides for some of the Jewish brethren. Luther. Zwingli. None of them. Calvin. Any of those individuals, the church fathers. You can read all them books. You can study all of the generals of the faith. You can look at the Hickeys and the Hens and all of the people of faith, the fathers of faith, the apostles of faith. You can look at all of them. And none of them, not one of them, demonstrates the highest example of faith. You say, well, we didn't see Yeshua. Well, Well, a lot of the people that we put our faith in and confidence in is based on books we've read. We've read their books. And we come to admire them, not because we've met them. Maybe we've seen them on TV. And a lot of the people, the young people aspire to are people that they've listened to their music, read their books, read their testimonies. They've never met them. And I didn't want to recommend to you. Have you heard? Have you heard? Have you heard? The one that each and every one of us should aspire to become like is the author and finisher of our faith. Does that mean that nobody else is important? No, that's not what that means. Just know that everybody else is flawed to the degree that their flaws hinder them in walking out the example of faith that Yeshua, who also was dealing with some of the flaws that human deal with because he was born of a woman. How many of you know Yeshua had flaws? Now, I know it's hard for you to think that he had flaws, but if he didn't have flaws, he couldn't have been tempted. And he was tempted, but yet he didn't sin. He didn't give in to those temptations. Even on the cross, it was a man on that cross. He demonstrated. Now, some of us can't get beyond the fact that it was God. But the fact of the matter is that he died as a man, a human being. And as a human being, he says, listen, what I do, you can do too. But if you separate yourself as a human because you come to the conclusion he's God, you've already put a great gulf in between you, and you've come to the conclusion you can't do what he said he can do. He said you can do. So somebody's lying. Somebody's lying. If he said you can do the things that he did, and you say you can't do what he did, then somebody is lying. And I can tell you, it's not him. But in order for you to do what he said you can do, you got to overcome yourself. And you can overcome yourself and still be a father. You can overcome yourself and still be a husband, a wife, a mother, a sister, a brother, a grandmother. You just live according to the standard he's laid out. And if people want you to respect their beliefs and they don't respect yours, then Houston, we got a problem. Why would you respect somebody's belief who don't respect yours? Why would you compromise your faith to be in relationship with somebody who don't respect your faith? I won't tell you who the fool is. I think you already know. I've chosen not to be anybody's fool anymore. Father didn't save me to be your fool or to be foolish. There is no greater or higher example of faith than that demonstrated by our Savior and King. So now I want to give you a few keys and some scripture verses to overcome the devil. And it's just a few. Read, remember, and recite the word of YeHoVaH. That's what Yeshua did. And then in Joshua, Father said, this book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. for then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Agree with the word. Trust the word of truth. Stand on the truth of the word of Jehovah against all feelings, all emotions, all counsel, and wisdom of the world and men. Trust Jehovah with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Proverbs 3:5, trust in Jehovah with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall do what? Direct your path. Another key, we must take all thoughts captive that exalt itself against the truth of the word of YeHoVaH. There will be times, depending on situations and the people involved, you will want to reason with yourself and compromise the word of truth. Don't do it. Don't do it. You will be tempted. It would be hard not to. Well, what if they threaten you? What if they threaten to leave you? If I have to compromise who I am because somebody threatens to leave me, then I become a captive to them. They should leave. It may hurt me. I may not want that. But if I do, I become their slave. And anytime I say or do something, because if they see that that threat works, how do you think they'll go back to that bag? If you want me to love and appreciate you the way you are, how dare you try to change me? Now, I may not like you. I may not like your ways. But I have to trust the Almighty. I don't give in to you. I don't compromise who I am for you. I'm going to speak the truth to you in love. And if anybody leave, it won't be me. Many people have left me. I'm still here. And many people will leave you, and you still there. Think about the folks who you thought will always be there that ain't there no more. Now, the question is how much of you did they take with them? Get you back. Take you back. Don't let people take you. Don't let them take a part of you. Don't let them leave you damaged. Choose not to be damaged, because you got a healer. Choose to be whole, because that's his desire for you. If you think you can't be whole because somebody done took a part of you and they broke your heart, and I'm not trying to be mean, get your heart back. And be bold about it. I will no longer allow you to take a part of me hostage. I'm going to love you. I'm going to cherish you. I'm going to treat you like you deserve to be treated, but I will accept no less. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear Jehovah and depart from evil. It shall be health to your navel and marrow to your bones. Give no place to the devil in your thoughts, words, or actions. See, I know where I give place to the devil. It's right up here. I be walking around fighting, talking to myself. Sometimes, folks be overhearing me. I don't know, y'all don't do this, but I do this. I be walking through the house fussing. in my head. And sometimes I have to fuss with myself to show me how unreasonable I am. And once I come to the conclusion that, you're just being unreasonable, you've solved the issue, you've worked it out, now you got to play it out and act it out. Because if you think about what's going on in there and you monitor it according to his word, you realize that, hey, your motivations, your reasonings, the way you're thinking, the way you're behaving, that's not what he wants from you. You may feel justified in that, but you know better. And you just have to come to the conclusion that you're going to yield to him. And not to your feelings, not to your emotions, not to how somebody is treating you, not to how somebody is acting, not what somebody is saying to you. Because people can get into your spirit and they can get on your nerves. They can get under your skin. And once they get there, it's like a tick. They done burrowed themselves in. My daughter was telling me when she go hiking, they have a tick check before they come out the woods. They have to check because a tick gets into your bloodstream. And they just start sucking life out of you, and you can't feel them. See, there are people who they become like a tick in your life. And they just sucking life out of you. And you got to pluck them out. Give no place to the devil in your thoughts, words, or actions. Ephesians 4:24. And that you put on the new man, which after Elohim is created in righteousness and true holiness. Now this is Paul, right, y'all? Wherefore putting away lying, stop lying. Speak every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one of another. Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down on your wrath, neither give place to the devil. Let him that stole steal no more, but rather let him labor, working with his hands the thing which is good, that he may have to give to him that needeth. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed unto the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be ye kind one to another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Messiah's sake has forgiven you. Be ye therefore followers of Elohim as dear children. Submit to Jehovah. Resist the devil and he will flee. James 4:7. Submit yourselves therefore to Elohim. Resist the devil and he will do what? Flee from you. Draw near to Elohim and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. I tried to shake this, but I'm not going to shake it. I'm going to speak it. If you are being, I don't know how else to say it than to say, if you're living with somebody who's not your husband or living with somebody who's not your wife, you have to stop being intimate with them. You need to stop having sexual relationship with someone who is not your husband or who's not your wife. You need to stop doing that. And stop performing sexual acts on yourself. Why sex? Because of all sins, that's the sin whereby we sin against ourselves. Paul wrote that all sins are outside the body, but he who commits sexual sin sins against their own body. And that's where the greatest amount of confusion comes from people. Is sexual intercourse creates confusion. Because to be intimate with somebody is to be one with somebody, and we should not become one with anyone other than the one we're married to. And so if you're not married, then you need to stop it. Moving on. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear Jehovah and depart from evil. It shall be health to your navel and marrow to your bones. And then finally, honor Jehovah with your substance and with the first fruits of all your increase. So shall your barns be filled with plenty, and your presses shall burst out with new wine. Now, in Proverbs 3:9, honor Jehovah with your substance. That's everything. Everything that you are, that he has entrusted you with, you want to make sure that you're honoring him with it. That's from the clothes on your back, the car you drive, the house you live in, everything that you are the steward of. You want to make sure that how you're using what he has entrusted you with is honoring unto him. With that, I'm going to bring this teaching to a close. Shalom, saints. Tithing and giving first fruit offerings are critical parts of the believer's faith and has its foundation back in Genesis 4:4, when Abel brought of the firstlings of his flock and of the fat thereof. And Jehovah had respect unto Abel and to his offering. Abel was commended by Jehovah in Hebrews 11:4, where it states that by faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and by it he being dead yet speaketh. Solomon said in Proverbs 3:9 and 10, honor Jehovah with thy substance and with the first fruits of all thine increase. So shall your barns be filled with plenty, and your presses shall burst out with new wine. The prophet Malachi wrote in chapter 3, verse 11 and 12, to bring ye all the tithe into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, says Jehovah of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there should not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, says Jehovah of hosts. And all nations shall call you blessed, for you shall be a delightsome land, saith Jehovah of hosts. When we tithe and give offerings consistently in obedience to Jehovah's commandments, we can count on him to keep his promises to us and consistently meet all of our needs. It is our Father's desire to bless you. However, it begins with you and your act of obedience to tithe and give offerings. Do it today. Shalom.
For more information, visit www.arthurbaileyministries.com or call 888-899-1479. House of Israel International Services is made possible through financial contributions from brothers and sisters like you. Thank you.